AI is automating entry-level jobs fast. Now, that can be scary unless you can move from a task doer to a task orchestrator. So in this video, I'm going to show you 3 frameworks to make your career and your income anti-fragile, even if you're starting with nothing. With that, let's jump in. As always, I would really appreciate it if you like this video and if you subscribe to my channel, especially if you learned something new. So first, let's take a look at the reality. Let's do a quick reality check. Technology. This word is in the media every single day. At least it seems like that to me. Sometimes it might feel like progress is slow, but honestly, it's all about compounding. Just like compounding interest in finance, technology is the same thing. It's compounding, and then all of a sudden, you seem like you're in a new industrial revolution, which we very well might be in. So take a look at these 4 industrial revolutions. We had very first one, we had like steam locomotives, so lots of mechanical power generation. And then that kind of led to the next one, which is industrialization. We had, for example, the assembly line with the Model T Ford in the 1920s, which then led us to the next industrial revolution, which is all about electricity. Edison, for example, which also helped us improve productivity, the internet, etc. And then finally, now we're in to the 2000s with the smart automation that includes not just computers, but it also includes AI, right? So these are kind of the 4 main industrial revolutions that we've been seeing. And specifically, when I was talking about this compounding interest and seemingly jumping up, you can see this in this chart, right? Like initially, it kind of looked like it was pretty slow, where you had, the printing press. That was a huge revolution, helped scale up the amount of books and then ultimately the knowledge that was passed down from one generation to the next. The telescope, you had that, Galileo, right? Then you had the steam engine that kind of led to a couple of impressive inventions, which then led on to, electricity. We had the telephone, the car, the light bulb. And then finally, look at all of these inventions just within, let me zoom out again, just within the last half century, not even last century. And it's probably just going to compound even further. So that's where we have been. But now a lot of people have been saying, Fiona, what do I need to do in order to have job security? And as we might have seen in the news recently, job security might not be that simple, at least not as it was, especially for younger entry level workers, because AI has been supplanting those, if you want to call it, grunt workers who are maybe doing kind of like the base research or whatnot. But that research is still really imperative for the continuity of the business, for example. So how can you improve your skill set if you're an entry-level worker without losing that job to AI? Let's check it out. So the very first of the 3 frameworks is called the moat framework, which is really all about building that personal career moat. Now, if you're wondering what a moat is, if you think about, like a little castle, and this is probably not a great drawing of a castle, right? But you have your castle, and then around the castle you have this thing called a moat, which is the water, right? And this is supposed to have like little crocodiles. Here's the tail of the crocodile, and it's supposed to like swim and surround the castle. So if there is like a drawbridge, right, and there's people trying to come in with swords and stuff, the moat makes it a lot harder because you have a drawbridge that could be pulled back, you have the crocodiles and all that stuff. So what is a moat? A moat is to protect yourself. It's like your personal career. That is the treasure chest. That is the castle, right? And then the moat, the thing that protects you, your life earnings, your revenue potential, is what we're going to be talking about right now. So the very first piece, so this here is an acronym, the M, would stand for mapping out your work. So I want you to take some time and really map out what you are currently working on each day. So for example, what are some repetitive tasks that you've been doing? So for me, for example, I do emails. That's a really repetitive task. I try to think about like prompts, for example, prompts for some team meetings. So I need like brainstorming help. So those are some repetitive tasks that I typically do on a weekly basis. So for me, I would have so much more time freed up if AI was able to help. Judgment client strategy, that's more like, individual individual work or like portfolio management, for example. Yeah, sorry for my bad handwriting. But, as you can see, this is a lot more individualized for clients, right? So this here is maybe something that AI can't really take and process and develop a good product, which is okay. That's why clients are paying me to help look at their situation and then develop a positive strategy for them. And that's fine. Typically, this here is more the qualitative work. This here could be more on the quantitative side, right? So numbers and maybe more on the logic side. That could be a little bit more repetitive. So I would then list at least the full 2 weeks of tasks that I've done that are repetitive, especially repetitive. And I would want you to circle anything that is repetitive and then square anything that is qualitative or that is more on the judgment client strategy side. And anything that is repetitive, that is a candidate for AI. So you could actually pick up that job, that task, and pluck it into AI. And then square anything, like I just said, that requires judgment, like a lot of human help, a lot of human judgment and assessment. And that is what you should keep and focus on. So any time that's saved here for the repetitive tasks should be reinvested into the more human judgment heavy tasks, which would ultimately help scale your results with your clients as well. Next is the orchestrate of the moat. So the O is next, orchestrate with AI. So you want to convert, ideally to save time, those circled tasks into a mini pipeline. So for example, if you have a prompt, if you want to develop a prompt for AI, you want to plug in that data. So for example, like an email, then you want to put in guardrails like what to say versus what not to say. And then you can create an outcome like an actual email draft that of course needs to be vetted by a human before it is sent. So now your job shifts really from doing like writing an email, for example, to designing a prompt and then ultimately verifying that the human verification for that email before it's sent to the client. The A in the moat stands for acquiring scarce skills. So I want you to think about really one technical skill that maybe you've struggled at, for example, and that you want to learn with the help of AI as your private tutor. Now, for me, for example, that would have been about a year or two ago. Pivot tables, maybe. And for any of you who know the comedy series Silicon Valley, this here is Jared, and I just think he's hilarious when he says we should pivot. So I figured this would be an appropriate time to include this. But anyway, pivot tables would be something, this is in Excel, basic prompt chains for AI or other API basics. So these are all things that you can actually acquire and use AI to help you understand. The reason why is because skills really are in demand, more so sometimes than degrees and certifications. Scarce skills, they increase a business revenue and they decrease costs generally. So if you're on a tight budget, you still want to up your knowledge level, consider getting some skills and use AI to help you with that. The next point is the T, the last letter in the acronym MOAT, which is tell the impact. So understand and track weekly, right? What is the actual impact? So for example, how many hours did you save by skipping over your circled tasks like writing email drafts? And how many hours did you actually start implementing toward those more judgment heavy tasks like developing an optimal portfolio for a client or some maybe more qualitative strategy for a client? How many leads did you generate if you're running a business using AI? How much revenue did you increase your own business or yourself? Like revenue could also be income. How many new skills did you learn? I should put an L here. And then what is the cost per lead decrease if, again, you're running your own business? If you're using AI and instead of outsourcing and paying someone else or using your own valuable time, maybe AI could have reduced the time or the cost that you paid for someone to help you get those leads. So that's one framework, the moat framework. So again, the moat framework is generally about your personal career moat. Like, how do you protect your own career against AI possibly automating your career and then causing you to lose your job? The next framework, the second out of 3, is called the Labs Stack framework. So this year's kind of like 6 weeks, basically. In 6 weeks, you can get this done. Now, before I jump in, I want to make sure if you're enjoying the content of this video and you want to learn more, please click on the link at the bottom of the video in the comment, and that will help you sign up to my newsletter. I would really love it. It's weekly and would love to see you there. All right, so moving on. L is for language to logic. So this here specifically means it's important to learn the language of AI, right? And like of ChatGPT, for example. So a tip here could be understand how prompting works. So know what role you want the GPT to take on. Know what constraints or guardrails you're trying to set in the prompt itself. Know what examples maybe to provide of successful examples that you want it to kind of mimic, or of examples that are failures that you want it to avoid. And then what are some other success criteria or key performance indicators that you need the GPT to understand before it generates an output. And with that, it would be good if you build 3 reusable prompts for your job, for example. Maybe sales summary. So create a prompt for it to summarize a certain sales call, for instance. A lesson plan if you're a teacher, or an ad brief, like how should you structure a new ad for social media, for instance. The A in the Labs framework is about analytics and data basics. So AI can genuinely help you quite a bit when it comes to analyzing data, especially if numbers are not necessarily your strong suit. So examples here, AI benefits for small businesses, specifically data analysis. They help you with predictive analytics. This is a big one. For example, if you're running a restaurant, you're trying to analyze from past year's data how much rice should I order this upcoming week? This is maybe week 50 out of 52 in the year. Well, if you upload all of the data from the previous years, assuming you have the data into ChatGPT, for example, or another AI engine, maybe it can extract some hopefully accurate information for you to develop a better understanding of how much rice you need to order for your next week. So this based on like historical trends. So very, very helpful. There we go. Historical trends. And it can just help pull out some things that maybe humans might struggle with or just take too much time, especially if data isn't your strong suit. And then again, harnessing the power of data, it can help you if you're in social media or marketing, help you understand who's your most responsive audience based on past behaviors, discover which types of content resonate with each segment. So how can you maybe tailor specific ads to certain demographics to extract the highest revenue per customer, for example. And then you can also use A/B testing variations using ChatGPT, for example, to determine like which maybe demographic might like which ad or copy or whatnot more. So it helps you brainstorm, and it also actually helps you develop the final product. The B in the Labs framework stands for business workflows. So again, going back to this email example, for me, emails are a big time suck. So if I have emails that are pretty straightforward, like for example, there's an FAQ email like, Fiona, what is the best return on my investment when I invest in the stock market? I have a generic email template. Obviously, I always look before it's sent, but it does help me understand an end-to-end process, having a prompt ready in GPT to go in order to answer these emails. And the benefit is multifold. First of all, it increases my response time to the prospect or the client like tenfold. Second of all, it at least gets something generic out. And third of all, if the client or prospect is very interested in continuing the conversation, they will likely come back with a more specific question, at which point I will personally answer that question with a lot more, probably with a lot more detail than just something like quite generic. But there are a lot of benefits to this. And that's why if you do have inbound emails, maybe you can use AI to categorize them, to provide rules, to help you draft a reply, and then to possibly log it into your customer relationship management system, your CRM system, to help track kind of the interactions you've had with prospects or clients. And then finally, the S part of the Labs framework is really all about marrying your AI skills to your domain specialization. So for example, if you are in finance, then AI can help. Maybe you can use AI to help you understand how to maybe sort through data or analyze data more efficiently. You can marry that skill with your current financial analysis domain to improve your overall maybe Excel efficiency, for example. That can ultimately increase your own value to the company that you're working for or your own company. So that increases your pay. And it also makes you much less replaceable, meaning you're valuable, which again means you have much longer term prospects at that company, assuming you're employed, and maybe won't let go as easily because of your valuable skill set. And then finally, the third of 3 frameworks is the focus framework. And this here's more for small teams and solopreneurs, but I thought I should include this. So the F in the focus stands for frontline support. So again, using that email example, I really think this is powerful. If you have an email landing into your inbox, you can automate the system. You can auto tag the email, summarize it, draft replies, again for FAQs, as I was mentioning earlier. And then, of course, have the human approval before it is sent back. The massive result for this is that the first response time decreases. And oftentimes, clients or prospects, they just want to know that someone is out there, someone is reading their information, their inquiry, and they're getting a response. That is typically one of the very important things to prospects and clients. And then if they need more information, of course, they'll probably reply back with more specific questions. The O in the focus framework is all about outcomes-driven marketing. So here we're looking at feeding top posts and sales to AI. So any of your top social media posts, any of your top emails that are maybe generating the most amount of revenue, that can be all fed into AI to analyze it and then identify why that topic converted, given maybe the time period it was sent in, given your audience demographics, etc. So then it can help you generate similar content to continue boosting your overall revenue generation, right? So again, the cost per acquisition would decrease and your revenue would increase through this. So that's very helpful because it can brainstorm. The C in the focus framework is all about cash flow and forecasts. So for example, what I love doing is developing if-then scenarios. If ad spending increases by 20%, what happens to profits if the cost of goods sold stays flat? Well, that means that improves your cash runway. So if you spend more on ads, but everything else stays the same, then your profit could, for example, increase and your cash runway would increase. So the amount of cash available for your company would increase because of the related profits. The U stands for user design, UX, and product or user experience rather, and product ideation. And that specifically is about, brainstorming features. So GPT is great for brainstorming, refining user stories. Maybe you're interviewing one of your customers. Maybe the interview isn't as smooth as you had hoped. So you can use GPT and AI to help refine the story, obviously with their permission. And then finally, you can generate mock copies. So this goes back up to the O in the focus framework, which is feeding these top posts and sales and top sales to AI to figure out what works for your audience, what actually generates good revenue. Well, this is where you can generate mock copies and see if maybe these are ones that you want to create and disseminate down the road. And the result is the time to prototype. So whether the prototype is a real product or an actual like a document, for example, doesn't matter. But the point is that time decreases, which means ultimately, at least the hope is that the revenue or the time to revenue actually increases because of that time to prototype decreasing. And finally, the S in the Focus framework is all about structure and hiring. I think AI is very helpful. It has helped me quite a bit for like organizational structure, developing my team dynamics. It helps draft role scorecards. So if you're trying to like post a job, for example, online, it helps draft a role scorecard, a rubric if you're interviewing new employees. Onboarding, if you're onboarding new employees or clients, also massive help, and it makes the process so much smoother and provides really good ideas on how to onboard clients faster, which ultimately, again, means more revenue for you and higher client satisfaction. Additional results: time to hire decreases, time to onboard clients decreases, and ramp up time for employees also decreases, which ultimately translates to revenue increase, right? If employees take much less time to understand the systems around them, then they typically understand it faster, which means they can help you generate profit faster. And again, most important thing is leverage that AI to help build wealth now. That is incredibly important, whether that means through skills, whether that means through actual business or other ways. The point is, you can use it starting today. And if you found this video helpful, please like this video and share my channel with others. And subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's at _MMW for more cool insights. And make sure to join my newsletter. Again, that's pinned at the bottom. It's the top comment for more exclusive weekly insights and tips. Your bank accounts will thank you later. See you later.